People, past few days, I've been covering some very scary situations where people who know a lot about UFO technology, you know, extraterrestrial landings in the United States, and also anti-gravity, basically, you know, advanced propulsion technology that's being used in rockets and, you know, defense systems in military planes. People that know a lot about these things, they're dying. They're going missing. I've covered about, I think, 9 people total now who have either died or gone missing very, very suspiciously because they had been working on technology that either had something to do with UFOs or top secret defense contracts to do with rockets. Now, in this video, I'm going to dig a little bit deeper into some of the actual technology that people are getting killed and disappeared over. Okay, hopefully I'm good talking about this, but look, we're going to take a risk, and I'm going to talk to you about these things in this video because in the last video, we uncovered a lot of crazy stuff, including an anti-gravity aircraft that is apparently top secret, and people are literally getting killed and going missing over, okay? So I'm going to break it all down for you in this video, and I'm going to show you some very, very interesting clips about how the government is actually handling classified information related to UFO and technology, okay? Essentially, apparently there is technology that is actually being used by extraterrestrials to kill humans. Now, I'm not trying to get all conspiracy minded on you here, but some people are debating whether these UFO experts, is it humans? Is it secret government organizations that are taking them out? Or is it even possible that extraterrestrial beings are actually taking them out? This sounds ridiculous, but once I show you the information in this video, you're going to believe it a little bit more.
Do you believe that our government is in possession of UAPs?
Absolutely, based on interviewing over 40 witnesses over 4 years.
And where?
I know the exact locations, and those locations were provided to the Inspector General.
Has any of the activity been aggressive, been hostile in your reports?
I know of multiple colleagues of mine that got physically injured, and the activity, and I got to
by UAPs or by people within the federal government?
Both.
If you were me,
he said he knows people that have been personally injured by UAPs and government organizations.
Where would you look? Titles, programs, departments?
I'd be happy to give you that in a closed environment. I can tell you specifically.
And I would say, and I've told people that you have to know where to look. They're not going to divulge it to you because of the classification levels. But if you know where to look and who to talk to, which is exactly where Mr. Grush can point you, then you have them.
This is terrifying. People are saying both is terrifying. Okay, people are potentially getting hurt by the UAPs, the UFOs, the extraterrestrial beings, and the government agencies. Really, nobody is safe. So a former government official would actually explicitly describe a highly advanced sentient brain implant that apparently has
You've
been
actually
in
seen
existence.
what you believe may well be alien technology, an implant.
I have.
What did you see?
I saw a technical device that had been removed, excised by the Department of Veterans Affairs by a surgeon, a trained physician from a U.S. military service member who claimed to have a UAP encounter. The physician claimed that the object tried to run on him or evade being excised.
So let me get this right. This object, whatever it is, it's a constructed object. It's a technological object.
It's a technological object enveloped in some sort of biological capsule. The current theory is that that capsule is there to fool the body as not to create some sort of immune response to a foreign object.
The physician you spoke to described that object apparently trying to intelligently avoid being captured by the human doctor.
Correct. That is what the doctor reported.
So they're really reporting that there is extraterrestrial technology being implanted in Americans. It sounds ridiculous. These are reputable news sources. Now, I'm going to show you something else crazy, okay? So there's a specialized Las Vegas-based UFO program that officially documented numerous cases of paranormal activity linked to alien encounters, specifically aggressive actions. And it sounds like the extraterrestrial beings, alien encounters, whatever you want to call it, are actually aggressive, and they do actually want to do harm to humans.
For 27 months, Las Vegas was UFO Central. A secret program known as OSAP was created back in 2008 with support from Nevada Senator Harry Reid, and actually became the largest UFO investigation ever undertaken by the U.S. government, at least as far as we know.
But the investigators for the program, all of whom had top security clearances, encountered things that were far stranger than UFOs, phenomena that could be accurately described as paranormal.
8 News Now Chief Investigator George Knapp, the only journalist allowed to know about OSAP, spoke to the government scientist who was the program's director. George?
Yeah, things get a little weird here. Back in that era, 2008 to 2011, I had heard the name Dr. Jim Lakatsky a few times, mostly in hushed whispers. I finally met him face-to-face on St. Patrick's Day 2018 at a meeting in D.C. arranged by Senator Reid. That's when I received a full download about OSAP that stunned me. What they found in this sprawling UFO investigation is that these unknown craft, whatever they are, seem to generate spooky phenomena that seemingly shouldn't exist.
We heavily went into Skinwalker Ranch, property of Robert Bigelow's. He offered a facility where we could see UFOs and the paranormal at once in one location.
How did this ranch in northeastern Utah, previously owned by Las Vegas aerospace tycoon Robert Bigelow, become a key part of the government's classified UFO investigation? It started at DIA, the Defense Intelligence Agency, where rocket scientist and intelligence analyst Dr. James Lakatsky and a colleague, Jay Stratton, became both puzzled and alarmed by reports about UFO intrusions at many of our nation's most sensitive national defense facilities. Residents of the Uinta Basin in northeastern Utah had been reporting frequent UFO incidents for decades, probably longer, and the Bigelow Ranch was deemed an epicenter of weird activity, not just UFOs, but also unknown creatures, things that presumably exist only in myths or movies. Okay. Bigelow's organization, NIDS, moved on to the ranch, and its team of scientists and investigators began collecting testimony from residents, then started seeing the creatures and phenomena for themselves. Lakatsky, Stratton, and the bosses at DIA were intrigued, not repelled by the wild stories. They wanted to know if UFOs and the seemingly related paranormal incidents might be considered a threat.
Because I could see from my organization the threat potential, and we weren't covering many of the things you were observing. Strange creatures. I mean, think of inducing these, what might be called illusions by some people, into an enemy force. We wanted to learn what can be weaponized here.
Lakatsky and Stratton put together a program which DIA approved. The acronym was OSAP. Senator Harry Reid helped secure the funding, and Bigelow Aerospace was the contractor. 50 full-time investigators were hired, obtained top-secret security clearances, and went to work. The main focus was UFOs and UFO technology, but one smaller focus was measurable health effects on people who encountered a UFO and were physically harmed or developed rare diseases, including psychological effects. That allowed OSAP to cast a wide net and to report seemingly outlandish stories about creatures, poltergeist-type activity, and other weirdness. Dr. Lakatsky says that OSAP created a massive database of UFO accounts, but the witnesses were typically reluctant to admit that they had also had paranormal experiences after encountering UFOs.
We realized that people who openly say and are confident enough to say, I observed a UFO up close, maybe on the ground, that they always seem to have a paranormal connection in some way if you gently push them.
Perhaps the strangest experience reported by nearly everyone in OSAP who visited the Bigelow Ranch is what is now known as the hitchhiker effect. At least 5 highly experienced intelligence officers who went to the ranch to check things out came into contact with paranormal phenomena and then took it home with them. They and their families would see balls of light inside their homes, shadowy figures, even creatures that were physical, not merely a mental image. After one investigator returned from the ranch to his East Coast home, his entire family was bedeviled by orbs and what they described as a wolf that walked on 2 legs.
The one here in the Washington area, and that's why you have to say paranormal. I mean, what did it get in a train or plane and come to Washington? It left deep scratch marks on the tree it was resting against. There was physical evidence.
After the existence of OSAP was first reported by us in 2018, and the full scale of the strange phenomena it had examined was made public by Dr. Lakatsky in his books, including the newest one, New Insights, skeptics claimed the DIA had killed OSAP at the end of 2010 because the reports it received were simply too weird.
Did they ever have the opinion that, oh gosh, this is getting kind of weird?
No, they never did. They basically wanted kept quiet. That's all. They didn't want to see it in the Washington Post.
Lukatsky and others familiar with OSAP tried to find a new home, a spin-off version, something called Kona Blue. Harry Reid helped lead that charge, and the Department of Homeland Security initially said yes, then higher-ups killed it. Lukatsky's new book hints that some slice of Kona Blue did move forward, but he declines to spill further details about that for now.
So all kinds of instances of very suspect encounters, okay? People are saying the truth isn't out there, the truth is here, all right? People saying it's true, all right? It really is happening. There really are extraterrestrial encounters, but this has been something that's been going on for decades, okay? So back in the 70s and 80s, I don't know if you remember this. I wasn't alive, but I do remember people talking about this. There was a relentless string of unexplained cattle mutilations across America, and this escalated into pretty horrifying verified instances of human mutilation, which some people do think has something to do with these hostile extraterrestrial beings, basically.
Deals with the 14,000 cattle mutilations that happened.
That's right, and we were particularly prevalent around Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona, and Utah. And it was a documentary made by Linda Moulton Howe for the CBS affiliate in Denver.
And let's take a look at that now, a piece of it.
Colorado are going to die each year from hard winters, disease, lightning strikes, predator attacks, and other natural causes. But in northeastern Colorado, another favorite spot for the mutilators, Tex Graves, former sheriff of Logan County, insists the 93 mutilated carcasses he investigated were not natural deaths.
The very first one we had was southwest of Sterling. When we first looked at it, it was just unbelievable that you could take an animal and do this too without leaving some kind of track, some kind of evidence behind, such as cigarette butts, matches, handprints, footprints, but there was nothing. The animal looked almost horrible, and it was something that I didn't really want to believe then. And there was, we probably had 5 or 6 others before I really did believe something strange was going on. We had one up north where we believe the animal was paralyzed and was alive when it was being mutilated. An eye and an ear, the tongue, the rectal area was taken out, but the animal dug a hole with its head, but none of the other parts of the body moved, not even the legs. 6 north of town on a very hard pasture, almost like hard brick. We found tripod marks 12 inches across. The tripod marks were 14 feet apart. We found one set that had gone in the ground roughly 8 inches. And it would take a good post hole digger or our shovel to dig in like this. It indicated something very heavy had set down in this area, yet there was no tracks leading from it nor to it. Almost nightly when this was going on, we could pick out a very brilliant, huge, brilliant light in the sky. We had a newsman take pictures of it with a very high-powered lens, but all we got out of this was the movement of it and the light showing very brilliant. Several times we observed smaller lights come out of this aircraft and then come down toward Earth. This huge, brilliant light would hang in the air, and then when it would move, it could move up and down, backwards, forwards, travel very rapidly, and after a while, these smaller lights would join up with the larger one, and then they'd disappear.
Lou Gerardo is the chief investigator for the district attorney's office in Trinidad, Colorado. Extraterrestrials are the ones mutilating animals. What do you think the implications are then for this planet?
Throughout the mutilations, all of us involved have been concerned with the possibility of the mutilations going from animals to human beings, understandably. Thank God to this point it hasn't happened. Whatever they're doing with the portions of these animals they are taking, I haven't the slightest idea. There's a reason for it. It's not haphazard. There's a pattern to it. I don't know. I think it's a wait-and-see game. What else can we do? If we do have beings from outer space doing this with the capabilities to do things like this, what can we as a human race do? If they have the knowledge and the technology that it looks like they have, we're powerless. So maybe it's a wait-and-see game. I can't see anything else to do.
Well, he says the mutilations have not gone from animals to humans yet. You agree with that?
There have been some humans. It's a very, very sensitive subject. I'm going to.
See the way he answered that, and he smirked. They said, "Thank God it's not gone from animals to humans." He said, "Hey, it already has, man. Can't even talk about it."
Steer away from that, but
you got to steer away from it. What do you mean?
Agree with that?
There have been some humans. It's a very, very sensitive subject. I'm going to steer away from that.
Why? Tell us. There have been mutilations of humans, and it's a sensitive topic. He's got to steer away from it. Are you kidding me?
But I will tell you that since the beginning of this year, there have been over 200 animal mutilations on Long Island. It's supposedly a big secret. I know that there's 4 major law enforcement investigations, investigators working in plain clothes.
On Long Island, New York?
Yeah, Long Island, New York. We have an investigator working with us who's sending us videotape and keeping us informed of what's going on. So it still is a problem.
And you say it's food. That's what they're doing.
Well, food or genetic experiments, take your choice.
Now,
what did my man just say?
Informed of what's going on. So it still is a problem.
And you say it's food. That's what they're doing.
Well, food or genetic experiments, take your choice.
Food or genetic experiments, take your choice on humans.
Now, it hasn't gone maybe to the point of where they're mutilating humans, but you do believe there are abductions. And you also believe that at one point there may have been some kind of a clash between American military forces and these UFO?
That's one of the stories when we began to discover what I call the Grand Deception. Was in 1979, and apparently there was some kind of clash. 1983 is the date that I call that we finally recognized that we had made a disastrous mistake. And that's when MJ-12 realized that they were in deep, deep trouble. They had made a deal with these people, and it had not worked out, and now the question was what to do.
He's really talking about there have been confrontations between the military and the extraterrestrials, and they don't know what to do about it. Bro, it's this thing scares me every day. The more I've been looking into this extraterrestrial stuff, the more I'm terrified. And as if you weren't alarmed enough, people, it's not just aliens in the sky, okay? They're in the water too. I'm telling you, people, they are in the water too. So apparently, based on the atmosphere, okay, there's been credible reports that apparently there's unidentified submerged objects, USOs, not UFOs, not unidentified flying objects, unidentified submerged objects, USOs in the water operating within the deep sea. I'm not, no word of a lie. Look at this.
The congressman from Tennessee believes in USOs. He's the co-chair of the bipartisan UAP caucus, which he launched to look into allegations UFO whistleblower David Grush made in his interview with me about a legacy crash retrieval program being hidden by the US government. Burchett has helped lead multiple congressional hearings looking into an alleged cover-up, working to strengthen whistleblower protections.
He's very keen on the idea that some or many of these UFOs are coming from underwater.
You've been quite outspoken on the subject of USOs. Why is that? What prompted your interest?
Well, my conversations with pilots, and they seem to always be over water, and then a chance conversation I had with a former admiral, or I guess you're always an admiral if you're one, about these 5 or 6 deep water areas. And it just seemed to make sense. That's where you're seeing a lot of the observations of the UFOs. And then when I'm told something big as a football field is moving at 200 miles an hour underwater, when I know the best we have is around 30, it lends itself to a lot more questions than answers.
I understand you've spoken to people who are direct witnesses to claims that there are objects that have been detected underwater moving at hundreds of miles an hour. What more detail can you give me on these particular incidents?
Well, of course, it's done by sonar, and the fact that we have nothing in those capabilities And if you shoot a bullet literally into a swimming pool, it's going to go just a few feet before it just stops. But you can shoot it through the air and it can go over a mile. And it just shows you the amount of friction and the amount of power that would have to have. But also it lends itself to why we keep seeing these things over water and then things that dive into the water.
One of the things you've spoken about is the speculation of underwater bases, not human bases, but bases by non-human entities. What can you tell me about what you've been told?
Well, that the concentration would be such that that's where they would be, and that we have not been able to explore any of these areas. If you just look at the numbers of sightings out over the ocean, it just seems to lend itself to that. And if you wanted to be undisturbed, where you wouldn't go in the middle of New York City or Knoxville, Tennessee, you'd go, although there's some strange things I've seen here, you would go where you would be least disturbed. And so the most unexplored area and the vastness of our great oceans is kind of hard to comprehend at some point.
He's saying that aliens are in bases underwater. Okay, this is, I don't know, I feel dizzy.
You've speculated about 5 or 6 bases of non-human entities. Where did you get that number from?
From some Navy officials that had, in fact, had broached that subject to me. I always remember the last thing this one fellow said, because you've been in my office, but you come in one door and you can go out the other if you choose. And nobody ever does. They just go out the entrance they came up. He chose to go out the other door so he could kind of get away from all the other. And the last thing he said was, he looked at me and said, "Tim, they're real." And I'll never forget that. And it led me to believe that he had more information.
And to be very...
So apparently there's numerous alien bases underwater, and there's senior officials in the Navy saying, "Tim, they're real."
Clear about this, Tim. What you're saying is that these objects underwater, these bases underwater, they are non-human. You're clear about that?
That would be my belief, yes, sir. We don't have the capabilities of traveling there or doing anything else.
Clearly, something is operating in our oceans very close to the continental United States. And as you've speculated, it's perhaps using it for some kind of surveillance.
100%. That's the only reason that would be doing it. When the numbers go up and then they drop off, it's almost nothing. And then you have these clusters that occur. And that would lead you, obviously, to believe that something is observing us, or we're observing something and we're observing them. But yeah, I guess it still just bothers me that our government won't come forward with it, because, and the guys on the intelligence committee, I think, and gals, I think you have a few in there that just wanted to dissuade us from finding out what the real truth is.
Well, let's go to basics, Tim. Do you think we are being lied to by the government of the United States about the nature of these threats from the ocean?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, I do. I think we're being lied.
Just said it straight up. Are we being lied to? Yes, sir.
Do about a lot of things, but I am the part of the government, and I don't trust it. I don't trust what's going on. You have to ask yourself, why are we being told to keep quiet? Why the secrecy? And it lends itself to Washington in itself. It's about power. It's about control. It's about secrecy. And therein lies some of the power and control over all of us. And I suspect all governments across the globe are the same way.
What do you think is President?
He's saying he's in the government and he's saying, yes, they're lying to you and they're real. Insane. All right. Someone in the comments says, my father spent his whole life at sea and he told us many times there were visitors living in the sea. Oh my God, this is just terrifying, okay? Terrifying. When you have 70% of the Earth's surface covered by ocean, it's quite obvious where the UFOs are hiding, okay? I don't know what to tell you, people, all right? These are serious people telling you, yeah, they're real. This isn't conspiracy theories. This isn't some meth head in Skid Row talking about the aliens came and took his shoes. This is suited up members of the government telling you they're real. So high-level whistleblowers have actually confirmed the existence of a massive UFO craft that's so big that instead of moving it, the government had to build a building around it. That's how big they are.
It's reportedly an object that is not in this country that is so large it cannot be moved, that they've built an entire building around it. And that's one of the locations that I'm requesting to get to. It's going to involve a lot to make that happen, but that may be the final destination.
So that is the claim, and it was made by a Republican member of Congress, that there is reportedly this object in another country that's so big it can't be moved, and a massive structure has been built around it to hide its location. But several questions remain. What is this? When did it get here? And why is it being kept a secret? Our next guests are both trying to get those answers. Missouri Congressman Eric Burleson, who sits on the Congressional Oversight Committee investigating UAPs and is trying to get permission to visit this alleged site, is with us alongside the founder of the Disclosure Project, Dr. Stephen Greer. It's great to have you both here. Congressman, what do we know about what this thing really is?
I don't know that I have any hard evidence of what it really is. I've had allegations from both inside and outside of the federal government that there is this object that exists in another country. I'm not going to mention the country because I've heard of it inside of a closed setting, and I want to protect my classification level.
All these people know what's going on, and it's all classified. They're not even allowed to talk about it. They know what's going on.
But others may say that. I can tell you that it's not in the facility that's been widely reported in the news. But I have been receiving reports both inside and outside of people that have worked in the federal government that there is the potential that this exists.
Okay. Dr. Greer, you have said publicly that this is outside Seoul, South Korea. Is that accurate?
Yep. One of them. Now, remember, I have debriefed almost 800 whistleblowers who've had direct involvement with this. One of them was with the Pentagon for about 8 years as a very senior investigator and had baseline clearance across 18 black project, unacknowledged special access projects. He specifically knew of the one in the mountains outside Seoul, South Korea. It was so huge, they had to build a structure around it. And he was read into this in between 2002 and 2010.
Okay.
So it had been there for some time. Now, I also know there are others that have been brought down in other locations. And if they're over a certain size, they're very, very hard to move. Imagine if they're bigger than a football field. And you're not going to put that on a semi. So it becomes logistically impossible to move it. And then in the United States, we know where there's some others, such as near Fort Sill, Oklahoma. There's a smaller one. They built a SCIF, a facility around that one. We have its location. So
there's numerous crafts that have crash landed on Earth that are immovable objects that are so big that they can't even move them, that they've had to build facilities around them both inside the US and abroad.
I know that the congressman can speak, to what he's limited, but because I'm a private citizen, I can discuss these.
Congressman, are you referring to the location in South Korea?
I can't be specific to that location, but there are wide reports. What I can say is that I've seen articles that have pointed to a specific building, and from what I've been told, that is not the facility.
Wait, can you explain why we can't? You're trying to get permission, I assume, from our government and another government or somebody with another country to go visit whatever this thing is. Maybe it's a spaceship, maybe it's nothing. Why can't we talk about where it is? I don't get that.
Again, because of the information was gathered inside of a classified setting on my behalf. What I can tell you is I have been trying to get access to even locations that reportedly have craft that are being reverse engineered, that are even close to Washington, D.C. And I'm having a difficult time getting access to even those facilities that are just within a few miles from my office in Washington, D.C.
So apparently there's facilities, they're reverse engineering alien technology near Washington, D.C. Can't even get access to it, okay? It is insane. So the government didn't know that the government found a UFO so large, but the government's now trying to get more info from the government, but it's so hard because the government keeps it classified. People say maybe this is why the US wants Greenland so bad. So look, thank God for Reddit, all right? Because I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you one of the alleged buildings, all right? Here it is. r/aliens 3 years ago. Anyang C locals photos of suspected UFO building, all right? It's locked off. It's classified. This is the one in South Korea. Okay, here are some pictures of the alleged building. They built a whole building around the UFO. Can't go in there. It's locked off. Don't even try. Barbed wire fence. You cannot even go up there. Okay, can't even go there. And it looks like a UFO. I'm not going to lie. The facility looks like a UFO. Looking mad UFO-ish. They got cars on the top of it. So I'm going to read this to you, right? This is insane. To catch you up, this building on a small mountain in South Korea is among those speculated to have been built around a crashed UFO. It's 265 feet wide, built of stone and concrete, surrounded by an 8-foot barbed wire fence. The signs mark it as belonging to South Korea's aviation authority, as it has navigational equipment mounted on top. Other models of this antenna platform can be seen elsewhere in South Korea, and the equipment for them does not extend below the platform, meaning this equipment is only built atop the building in question. The purpose of the building itself is unexplained. Local cyclists and hikers have visited the area and taken photos, as I collected as many as I could find. They're mostly from South Korean travel blogs. In all cases, I saw the person posting the photo did not suspect it of being anything other than an antenna complex, but did not investigate further. I'm literally not a specialist on anything, but my opinions follow. My first impression is that fence is over-engineered. It's weirdly beefy. The diameter of the post supporting it, as well as its height, seems excessive. It has barbed wire, so clearly it's intended to maim anyone attempting to scale it. It also appears to have camera setups on posts evenly spaced around the perimeter. This suggests that even with the fence, the entire perimeter is monitored or at least visible at all times through video surveillance. The building itself appears to be made of similarly sized but differently shaped stones from the area, almost haphazardly cemented together. It strikes me as the simplest permanent structure you could build around something if it was circular and if you didn't have a lot of space. It reminds me of how the Spanish built forts in some of their American colonies, built in a hurry from local materials. In comparison, the brick building out front looks modern and appropriately planned out. I would say the building looks at least 50 to 70 years old. I would say older, but the roof is tarred or paved. You can see cars parked on it in aerial photos and cracking from exposure to the elements. Please add your thoughts. So I'm just gonna have another look at some of these walls. Some of these, I could see the stone walls. So they're saying that this looks like it's built out of like local stones that they've very quickly gathered from the area to cement around. And they're saying that the posts and the poles on these fences are irregularly high, trying to maim you with that barbed wire. Do not go in there. It is extremely fortified, and as you can see, these sort of these stones here again, this is looking like some old school English kind of brickwork from back in the day. It is terrifying. Okay, so people saying, just want to point out the interior video is going around. What? This only shows inside the connecting shack. It does not show anything inside the circular building. Should we take a look? Is it still up? Here's the video. Here you go if the video does not propagate you. So here's a whole thread on it. Should we read the thread? Let me check out the video first. Let's check out the video. Oh, no. Let's refresh. Let's try again. They can't keep the alien technology from us forever. That's sus. All right, with a little trickery and hackery, I've managed to get hold of the video. Okay, here it is. Let's see what they're saying. So I think we're good on this annoying music. But look, this is somebody traveling up there. All right, they've traveled up there. Can we get some kind of we can't get any subtitles. So this is them actually entering the complex, entering the fence. We're seeing what's behind the gate. I'm scared of even showing you this, to be honest with you guys. This is going all the way up to the front of it. Okay, that's the little entrance building, and they're saying these brickwork. This is more natural. This is kind of more normal brickwork that you expect on something that wasn't so hastily built. We're actually seeing shots from inside this alleged UFO crash site. Okay, I wish I could understand what he's saying, but there's no translated subtitles available.
하늘의 등대라고 할 수 있습니다.
What are they saying in here? People are asking if this is where the UFO was crashed. Satellite photos have been obscured. It says, why aren't they working in the circular building but the small building next door? What on earth is that circular thing? I'm not saying the UFO conspiracy theory is correct, but aren't conspiracy theorists suspicious of the cylindrical structure next to the research lab? The inside of that structure isn't shown in the video either. If the exterior walls are made of stone, it isn't a typical building. It's excessively large to be considered a radar. So this is the scientific office that's attached to it. But no information on what's in there. So look, I'll read you this this post. I'll show you how I finessed that video. It says, never a dull moment in UFO land. Ross Coulthard, the journalist who interviewed the whistleblower and Intel veteran David Grush, who claims the US has UFOs in its possession, has said the US has a UFO so big it couldn't be moved, and they had to build a structure around it in a foreign country where it sat. Of course, this sent the UFO community on the hunt for this buried treasure. As a result, a facility in Seoul, South Korea, is what many people are saying is the mystery facility. While a big 270-foot wide round structure atop a mountain is certainly interesting, in the context of South Korea, it made a ton of sense beyond concealing some giant UFO. Hard to hide that basically on the edge of an extremely populous city regardless, but that's not the point here. What about all the barbed wire? It says, when I first saw the satellite imagery of the structure in question, three things stood out. Its location and how it was constructed. It provides a clear line of sight in all directions amongst South Korea's iconic high terrain. It seems custom built to achieve this based on its location, the structure's design, and the mountain it was built on. The array in the center of the circular facility is a common VORTAC CVFR map below used for aircraft navigation. It would play a critical role in air traffic operation in the region. 360-degree line of sight is key. for it, as it's an omnidirectional DME emitter system. You can't put one down in a field below, as its radio emissions will be blocked by the high terrain. The TACAN part of the vortex, as opposed to VOR, is critical for supporting military aviation operations, which are key to South Korea's defense. The large top of this structure, while it seems somewhat mysterious in the context of vortex, it's not. It provides a sterile area all around the array, but also in context of the unique security question South Korea exists in every day. It makes perfect sense. Said, let me explain. When I saw the structure, I immediately said, I bet you can drive vehicles up there. Sure enough, you can see in the image below, during a crisis, the large flat structure would be an ideal location for anti-aircraft systems. It will provide a wide area to arrange sensor systems and or AAA missile batteries. The same critical unobstructed line of sight would be key for defending Seoul in an attack that could come any day for the better part of a century. It would also provide easy helicopter access to move outsized equipment and personnel. The installation appears to be designed to support such a contingency, and as such, it would have the ability to be reinforced with security forces as needed. Maybe it also has other uses, like a contingency bunker for military operations, air defense, not uncommon in South Korea. It's unknown if the facility serves additional air traffic control functions at this time. So there's a very clear use case for this type of installation in that exact position for conducting its current mission as a critical air traffic aid, including for military aircraft. It's the perfect perch for which to help defend the skies over South Korea's largest cities. So does a buried UFO come with all this? I'll leave that answer up to you. But clearly this facility has far more pedestrian purposes. I'm honestly not buying it. I'm actually not buying it, okay? These are apparently vortex. This is what they look like generally. Okay. Okay, fair enough. All right, fair enough. But this is a similar site on the opposite side of the peninsula. So they're saying it's not for the aliens, okay? And apparently that video was explaining that that's not what it's for. All right, we'll buy it. We'll buy it. But what else are they saying in these comments, okay? The interior video going around doesn't show anything inside there. They're saying it's annoying. Next step is a grassroots campaign talking to all the elderly who have been their entire lives, asking them if they remember anything from the time it was built. Was there any weird events around then? Interesting enough. So I noticed in the newer photo, the roof has a fresh coat of paint and sealant, and a white line is painted around the perimeter. Maybe this is where it's still safe to drive on the roof in order to preserve the underlying structure. It says that's not, that's a vortex. The line is where you can't cross in order to not disrupt the navigation for aircraft. Okay. So they're basically saying that that's not what it is. We already checked out the video. But I don't honestly, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I'm buying it. Now, it's not just South Korea. Obviously, they said that there might have been crashed alien crafts that they built structures around in the US and other countries. Apparently, Russian intelligence has maintained its own aggressive parallel investigations into unidentified aerial phenomena for decades. And I'd be curious to know what the Russians have on the aliens too.
So he took the cover sheet off of it and then put it amongst his other documents to get out of the country and into our country so that he wouldn't be charged with espionage. As we go through them, I think the most amazing thing is they had mass sighting events, one in particular that took place in the 80s, I believe, in a small town where there was like a 450-foot sized jellyfish, looking object that came within hundreds of feet above the people. Hundreds of people saw it, kind of like our Phoenix Lights incident in 97, and yet we hear nothing about it on our side of the world.
Why did the incidents go up after 1978? Wasn't that strange?
Well, I mean, we did have a flap of sightings here in the U.S. in the 70s. We had some of the most famous cases, like the 1975 Travis Walton case, right. Coin Copter, late 70s. A lot of people want to attribute that to possibly the movies that were coming out at the time, Close Encounters and Star Wars and such. But right. I think that this was a global phenomena. And while we were having our spike, I think they too were seeing an increase for whatever reason.
By the way, I got to ask you about the map. I mean, you saw me lay it all out there. Did you notice any pattern there? Feels like a very random assortment of states where you see the most likely places to be abducted and the least likely. Can you see any factors here, any circumstances that would explain that?
Well, first, I think it's awesome that a Canadian sports betting, a company was doing this. Like, what are your odds? And you could look at it as good odds or bad odds. Do you want to live there or don't you?
So look, they're taking bets on where you might get abducted by aliens, which is crazy, okay? But basically, the Russians have been digging into it. The UFO files have been smuggled out of Russia, the United States. It's still seeming like a cover-up. So official reports are now confirming that the United States government actually did orchestrate a systemic 80-year global cover-up, and that there's apparently an ongoing arms race with other countries as far as actually, deconstructing alien technology and documenting all of these phenomenons.
The documentary is called The Age of Disclosure, and it tells the story of an 80-year global cover-up concealing the existence of intelligent alien life and technology. Tonight, we bring you an exclusive clip.
We learned that the U.S. government was involved in a long-running secret war with other nations to collect and reverse engineer vehicles not made by humans.
Some people claim it would cost them their lives if they spoke out about these things.
The first country that cracks the code on this technology will be the leader for years to come. This is similar to the Manhattan Project. This is the atomic weapon on steroids.
If Xi Jinping had access to this, if Putin had access, you think for a second that they wouldn't consider using it to achieve their ends of domination?
Sometimes strategic surprises that change the course of human history.
Dan Farah is the documentary's director and producer, and he joins me now. All right, Dan, I was up way too late watching this entire thing because I literally couldn't stop. Congratulations. It's fantastic. I was struck by this line from one of the people you interviewed. Without a doubt, there has never been a program before that has been so successfully kept out of the public eye as the Legacy Crash Retrieval Program. What is it?
One of the intelligence officials in the film makes that statement. And, previously the most secret program was the Manhattan Project, but we found out in hindsight that the Manhattan Project had leaks. Mm-hmm. So when this program was created, they made it even more secretive and put more security measures in place. And those security measures have ruled the day the last 80 years.
The Legacy Crash Retrieval Program is something that the Air Force does for the most part. They have special units that go out to collect, to retrieve alien spacecraft that have crashed.
Well, the people in my film reveal that the elements of this program are elements of the Air Force, elements of the CIA, elements of the Department of Energy, and military defense contractors.
All right. For decades, they've had these units that go out, and we're not the only ones with these units that are going out to retrieve the stuff. Yeah. Russia and China are too. That's the other amazing thing that you reveal in the film, which is that we're in a secret arms race.
Yeah, it's arguably the most shocking of the reveals that there is this high-stakes secret Cold War race to reverse engineer technology of non-human origin that the United States is involved in with adversarial nations like China and Russia.
We think China and Russia both have retrieved alien spacecraft as well.
That's what the officials in my film go on the record stating.
They go on.
So they're saying there's an arms race between America, China, and Russia to recover alien spacecraft and reverse engineer their technology.
On the record, in fact, saying that what in 1989, we think the Soviets retrieved a tic-tac-shaped spacecraft.
Yeah, which was significantly larger than the tic-tac encountered by the Nimitz carrier strike group, and Commander Dave Fravor, who pursued it.
You also have two different.
You know why this is scary? Because it means that if we're unlucky enough that the Russians or the Chinese get their hands on better alien technology than us, we've got no control of it. If the aliens just so happen to be chilling around China and Russia, we're cooked because they're going to get all the best technology.
Astrophysicists in the documentary who say that the government has retrieved at least 2 different alien species and that one of them made contact with the crash retrieval team. What does that mean? Does that mean it was alive when they captured it?
One of the intelligence officials in the film speaks about an event that happened on a U.S. military base where 2 UAP approached the base, one of them landed, and apparently non-human beings exited the craft and interacted with members of the Air Force and the CIA. Now here's the thing, these all sound like extraordinary claims that are hard for people to wrap their head around, right?
Yeah.
But these are 34, in my film there's 34 extremely high-level military, government intelligence officials, people who have been trusted with very high-level security clearances, people who have been involved in, keeping this nation safe in many different ways, and people who we trust in a lot of scenarios. And these interview subjects range from our Secretary of State to sitting senators to former Director of National Intelligence, former Secretary.
Yeah, this is scary, right? It's scary stuff. People saying I'm more worried about the cover-up than the fact we're not alone. I'm sick of being played for stupid, all right? Saying knowledge of life of the universe doesn't belong to any government. All humanity deserves to know the truth. Now, both the Bush and the Biden administrations have actually reportedly come to the brink of full public disclosure before abruptly aborting the plan. So both the Bush, the Biden administrations, and now the Trump administration too, they've all said we're going to disclose, we're going to let people know about the alien. Then they've said, nah, actually, we can't do that. It's too much.
During the second Bush presidency, Bush 2, they actually contemplated, they convened a cabinet meeting and debated and discussed for days about whether or not to finally go public with this program, with what they have found and what they have discovered.
So Bush 2 had learned the base facts that we're not alone in the universe and that there have been recoveries of technology of non-human origin. And he was contemplating.
He's saying it so matter-of-factly. He's saying George Bush Jr., Bush 2, he was told we have recovered space technology. Absolutely. It's true. He's been told.
Whether to share that with the world during his presidency. And he put together a think tank. One of the officials in my film was part of that think tank, and he goes on the record about it. They were asked to analyze the impact to various aspects of our society, from religion to the economy, And they all went into it bullish on the idea of disclosure. And after evaluating it, they all decided it was a bad idea.
Why?
For various reasons, just the impact, the place we were as a country following 9/11. They just didn't think it was a good idea. They thought that we weren't ready for it, right? The film also reveals that in Trump's first administration, he contemplated going public in a similar way. One of the officials in my film, high-level intelligence official, goes on record saying that Secretary Mnuchin reached out to him and asked him for a high-level briefing on this topic because he wanted to know what the economic repercussions might be.
No, I love that part of it because he says, "Do you want to know why I'm asking you?"
Yeah.
And he's like, "Why?" He said, "Because I need to figure out what's going to happen to our economy if we come out as a government and say aliens exist, aliens are here, and we have them."
Yeah. And obviously they made the same decision Bush 2 did, which was to not go public, right?
Public.
To keep it internal to the people who know.
There was one part of the documentary I wanted more information on. You interview a former military analyst who said that he and others who had interactions with the UAPs are now suffering physical effects. What interactions did they have?
Yeah, so one of the, to be honest, not so shocking reveals is that intelligence officials who have had encounters with UAP end up having biological effects. And I say not surprising because this is technology that we don't understand fully, that is emitting a lot of energy. And in the same way that if you stand behind the back of a
so he came close
fighter
to
jet, you're going to get hurt.
He came close to.
So they're saying that humans have actually been biologically impacted by encountering these alien technologies, these alien materials. This is just insanity, okay? It's insanity. But look, these are serious people saying that this is real. So look, maybe this isn't the info you were expecting to get on my channel, but it's confirmed. They're real. They're here. They're mutilating humans and animals. All of the countries are fighting to get their hands on the technology so they can reverse engineer it into their own weapon systems. Absolutely insane, okay? If you like that breakdown, let me know down in the comments, like the video, and I'll be back with some more UFO Excuse me, sorry, I had a little bit too much coffee this morning. I'll be back with some more breakdowns on the UFO topic, okay? I'm finding it really interesting learning about this. I know you guys are enjoying it too, and I think we're going to have to just keep digging into it, okay? So, yeah, I'll keep you guys posted. Let me know what you thought of this one, but it is absolutely insane, okay? I can't believe what I'm seeing. I'll catch you guys in the next video, but for now, I'm out.